Well, what a dramatic day in Pakistan where Nawaz Sharif resigned as Prime Minister today after the Supreme Court disqualified him from holding public office. The court ruled that corruption cases should be filed against Mr. Sharif and his children in the Panama Papers scandal. The allegations here are that Mr. Sharif's family laundered money in the 1990s to buy assets in London. These are alleged to have been managed through offshore companies owned by Mr. Sharif's children. They include 4 expensive flats in London. Mr. Sharif's resignation has delighted the opposition's Imran Khan and also strengthened the hand of the military, which Sharif had meekly tried to resist. Well, lots to talk about tonight. We have columnist Musharraf Zaidi joining us from Islamabad, senior journalist Jyoti Malhotra here in the studio with us, 2 former diplomats, Mr. G. Parthasarathy, who served in Pakistan, Mr. Mani Shankar Iyer as well in his capacity as a former diplomat, and Mr. Sheshadri Chari, member of the BJP and foreign policy analyst, also with us tonight. Musharraf, let me ask you, how is the story playing out there today? Is it being seen as as some people are saying, a great moment where the courts have ousted a corrupt prime minister, or is it being seen as a coup by the military through other means? Musharraf.
Nidhi, I think, I think a lot of people in Pakistan see this as a bittersweet moment. It is undoubtedly the felling of a massive political figure. It signifies that nobody in this country is above the rule of law. Concurrently, it also signifies the ongoing challenges of democratically elected prime ministers in this country and their ability to sustain their terms. I think there's very, very few people who see this as a military coup. There's certainly many people who feel that the judiciary has gone beyond the bounds of what it should have done. But there's no question that the Prime Minister is seen by a large number of Pakistanis to have failed to justify and explain his wealth, and in doing so has created the space for the Supreme Court to do what it's done.
It's interesting you say that, Musharraf, because when you look at the Supreme Court's order today, Mr. Sharif has been disqualified, but not because he's actually been found guilty of corruption, and I'm not saying he's a saint, but they have quoted the articles in the Pakistani constitution that say that members of parliament should be truthful and righteous, and basically not actually convicting him, but using those particular clauses. Therefore, as you said, it is also being seen as overstepping, and that's why perhaps those question marks are being raised about whether, in a sense, the judiciary has become a new battleground for the military to fight its battle with the civilian establishment.
Nidhi, there's nothing new about the concept or the accusations that the judiciary is an instrument in the hands of the military. This has been a narrative that has a long history, and there's a lot of truth, at least in the past, and certainly there are sprinklings of that now that suggest that there could have been a number of moments in this whole process where the judges or the judiciary writ large seem to have been influenced by the rather massive propaganda effort that has dogged Nawaz Sharif throughout his 4 years as Prime Minister in this latest go-around. But having said all that, ultimately, as I said earlier, the Sharif family utterly failed to put together a convincing political or legal case. And so for a lot of Democrats in Pakistan, it's very hard to robustly defend the Sharifs with a full-throated defense, simply because the material for that defense simply doesn't exist. And in the absence, or in that vacuum, of course, Pakistan has a long history where the military has stepped in. Here, there's no sign of the military anywhere other than in the JIT, where there were members of the military that aided the investigation. But this is largely a judicial sort of a move. The judiciary, a lot of people feel, has done more than it needed to. At the same time, a lot of people feel that with the Prime Minister who can't explain his wealth and defends his case as poorly as he did, maybe it's time for a change anyway. So I think there's a lot of people in Pakistan that are both happy about the felling of a big figure and sad about the fact that the democratic process has obviously
Musharraf, as you said,
having to endure another.
You're saying the military's role in this, and I'll take this to Ambassador Parthasarathy. Musharraf said that the military's role in this was limited to the joint investigation team that questioned Mr. Sharif and his family, and at the end of the day found them prima facie guilty. But isn't that where the story lies?
Well, I think Justice Khosa himself, I mean, I've gone through this trial very carefully, seemed to have it in for Sharif. And in certain cases, by a 3-2 vote, that's what set up the JIT. Left to Khosa, he would have just hanged and quartered him beforehand. Also the fact is, Nidhi, that this is not a conviction on corruption. This is a conviction on a charge that he received 10,000 dirhams in the UAE and did not declare it. Now his defense is, I never received it. Anyway, the judiciary went into all sorts of convoluted arguments, but fair enough. They have now disqualified him. Whether he is convicted or not will go to the courts. A second point I wish to make, which Pakistani ruler does not have properties? Take Benazir, she has a castle, she has a villa in Surrey, she has apartments in London, she has apartments in Dubai, nobody is touching her. More importantly, with this judiciary, it was established that General Musharraf had assets well beyond his salaries. He owns a posh apartment in London. He owns a huge apartment in Dubai. Where did all that money come from a serving general? Now,
so do you think the army played an underhanded role in going after Nawaz Sharif?
Yes, the judiciary has a point that he did not convincingly argue it, and I think particularly how they got it, and particularly Mariam, the daughter, made a hash of the defense in many ways, apart from the computer font she used.
Delete that font.
Yeah.
Now.
So I think the fact is it will go for trial, but I would have a slight nuanced difference with Mr. Zaidi, that I would like to see the day when General Musharraf is given the same treatment.
And here he is pontificating.
And here he is pontificating. Well, I mean, how can a serving general own property like he does and live poshly
so Mr.
in London?
Manishankar Iyer, what do you think the impact of this could be? I mean, India-Pakistan ties are in any case in a kind of a deep freeze at the moment. We've seen Nawaz Sharif juggling back and forth with the military. He made an attempt to reach out to India, has been held back. We've seen the military growing in its dominance. Does this just mean more bad news, more military domination of the Pakistani establishment and more bad news for India, or its status quo?
I don't think so at all. I think clearly there is been a smooth transition from the elder brother to the younger brother. If Nawaz Sharif had dug in his heels and not accepted the Supreme Court decision,
then it would have been problem.
And the army had stepped in to enforce justice on behalf of the courts, then there would have been a real crisis. But as it is, he has been extremely circumspect in his relationship with the armed forces, and the sins that he is alleged to have committed were all done at a time when it was 25-30 years ago, and in between he has suffered an exile where he was in danger of never coming back, and Musharraf is taking a personal revenge in saying what he said. I don't think any of this affects either Pakistani democracy or their relationship with India. Shahbaz is now going to take over, and I dare say he'll explore every possibility of in some way rehabilitating his elder brother.
Will the military really let him do that? I mean, the military has been so aggressive. Look at the way they've handled the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. It's very clear that the Pakistani military is asserting itself vis-a-vis the civilian establishment. So, and with elections due next year, what room does Shahbaz Sharif have?
Hardly breaking news. The army in Pakistan is a major political force, and therefore it plays its own game depending upon circumstances. But in this particular case, the Panama Papers were not revealed by the army. They were revealed through the Hindu and other newspapers in Pakistan.
The Indian Express, actually.
And the evidence has been led. He's been given an opportunity to defend himself. He's apparently done a bad job of it. And so the courts are moving forward, and he seems to be accepting their decision.
Mr. Chari, do you agree with Mr. Iyer's assessment of this, or do you see that this could actually complicate things further?
I think the things are getting more complicated in Pakistan. It's not very easy
to brush aside all these events as mere straw in a teacup and to say that democracy is very strong in Pakistan, probably more stronger than what it is in India and US. So it's a sham democracy. I think the army is striking back at Nawaz Sharif. The relationship between Nawaz Sharif and army was never good. It has always been a checkered history for Nawaz Sharif. This is the third time that he has been thrown out unceremoniously. And the army may probably tolerate a puppet regime for some time. For quite some time, the army in Pakistan has come to the conclusion that instead of sitting in the hot seat of prime ministership or becoming the president or giving a martial law, it is better to have a stranglehold on the political establishment and ask the political establishment to behave the way the army wants them to behave. Nawaz Sharif in between took certain decisions which were not to the liking of the army, and Musharraf has an axe to grind as far as Nawaz Sharif is concerned and also the judiciary is concerned. He has himself been pardoned by the army because the army does not want one of its former generals and president to be treated by the judiciary as an ordinary criminal. So I think the army and Musharraf are patched up. The army is now striking back at Nawaz Sharif. It's not going to be all hunky-dory for Pakistan anymore. So in that kind of a situation, the relationship, the talks between India and Pakistan will go further into deep freeze. Therefore, I think the best course of action for India would be to wait and watch and how that situation develop. We may probably have a little bit of cautious optimism, but that is not going to have, this is going to be a long drawn battle between the army and the political establishment.
And I think
it's not
with
going
elections
to end
next
tomorrow
year.
morning.
Yeah, and I think with elections next year, that
situation.
is also another complicating factor. So
Exactly.
Jyoti, what's your take on this? I mean, in any case, like I said, India-Pak talks weren't really going anywhere. But will this make the military more aggressive on certain issues vis-a-vis India? For instance, Jadhav?
So first of all, Nidhi, I do want to say that the Panama Papers were revealed by the Indian Express. I mean, you'll forgive me if I
plug your paper.
Absolutely. Not only that, but I'm, Ritu Sareen, my colleague, and Jay Mazumdar, they were sort of responsible for that. Now, on the Pakistan crisis, I do agree with Musharraf Zaidi, which is that Nawaz Sharif opened himself up to this. Whether those cases are 25 or 30 years old, it's a bit like what happened in Bihar actually between Lalu Prasad and Nitish Kumar, is that Nawaz Sharif unfortunately opened himself up to this kind of action. And I think both Partha and Mani are right that there is no Pakistan Prime Minister or big leader that doesn't have sort of these kind of properties at the risk of being, So that's the first point. Having said that, I think what is interesting now is also in Pakistan is that the judiciary, in my view, the Supreme Court has also overextended itself. While they were in their, they had every right to say that Nawaz Sharif was corrupt, but I think they overstepped their brief by disqualifying him. That's not the job of the Supreme Court, that's the job of the Parliament. And this has happened in 2012 when you remember Yusuf Raza Gilani was sacked.
The second time,
And the Dawn columnist Cyril Almeida called it judicial activism, judicial authoritarianism, if I remember rightly. Now, I think a little bit of that is happening right now. Yes, you don't see the Pakistan army anywhere, and that's a very, very smart move because the people of Pakistan are not going to allow another martial law to take place like Parvez Musharraf did in 1999.
Is this a different way of doing a military
It
coup?
may be, it may not be. We don't have, obviously there's no proof.
It's a more
Obviously,
sophisticated way of doing it.
Yes, it is. If you're right, and I think you're right, Nidhi, is that yes, it is a much, much more sophisticated way of doing things. They will not let anybody, there will be no proof. But Justice Khosa, it's interesting that in his first, when the Supreme Court first heard this case a few weeks ago, he began by quoting Godfather, the film Godfather.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so anyway, Pakistan, it's always so interesting, the developments.
But let me
that
ask
happen there.
Musharraf another question, which is, Musharraf, I think all of us here in India are also watching with interest about the possible rise of Imran Khan. I mean, what does this do to Imran Khan's political fortunes? Is he a serious contender for prime ministership in the future?
Nidhi, Imran Khan has been a serious contender since 2011. I think that the failure of the PTI to develop the kind of party infrastructure and the networks of political influence that any party needs to have in the Punjab to actually have a chance to form a government is what kept him from winning in 2013. That lack of network is what's kept him from putting up a more robust opposition. You know, for the limited resources and the political capital that he wields, he's had a remarkable run. First the Dharna in 2014, and then the threat of the Dharna this year that led to the Supreme Court case, and which has now led to the ouster of the Prime Minister. I think Imran Khan is rightly taking a lot of credit for how things have shaped up for the Prime Minister. But I also think that the same weaknesses that condemned Imran Khan to also-ran status in 2013 exist today. And so in terms of party infrastructure, in terms of electoral politics, I think the PTI has a long way to go before it can start claiming the capacity to outrightly deliver the prime ministership to Imran Khan. Don't forget also that there's a Supreme Court hearing on Imran Khan's assets in London. And
that should be fun.
There may be other victims of Article 62 and 63 in Pakistan before all is said and done.
Although Mr. Chari, of course, one of the big conspiracy theories about Imran Khan has been that he's been an army proxy in Pakistan. If he was to play a bigger role in Pakistani politics, what would that mean for India?
Cricket diplomacy instead.
No, I think Imran Khan, the army may very much want to bring in Imran Khan to some extent.
I'll tell you about Imran.
Go ahead, Mr. Chari.
But I don't think the army will be very successful in bringing Imran Khan into the fore, because they will have to do a lot of balancing with the clergy. Somehow the Imran Khan factor has not gone down very well with the clergy. So as I have said even earlier, Pakistan has got three power centers: the political parties, the clergy and the army. Therefore, the army and the clergy will have to come together if they want to keep a check on the political establishment. And I don't think Imran Khan will stand any chance as far as the elections are concerned. Anyway, it is a long time. For all that matter, the army may not like to hold an election next year. So they would probably put up a puppet in the place of the present Prime Minister and then try and ward off the elections next year. Therefore, I don't see any good reason why Imran Khan should be brought to the fore as of now. I think the clergy is not going to like it. And then there is also, don't forget a factor, the Canadian clergy is also waiting in the wings.
Well, Mr. Iyer, is it fair to write off Nawaz Sharif? We like to do that in the subcontinent, but somehow they all seem to come back.
Well, Nawaz Sharif still holds a tremendous amount of support among the people of Pakistan, particularly in Punjab. His bringing in his brother is ensuring that the family continues to have strong political assets. Now, at the moment, he's been disqualified by the Supreme Court, and as we've heard, the Supreme Court seems to have outstripped its jurisdiction in doing this. So the game, I don't believe, is over, but I certainly do not think that as a result of this particular decision of the Supreme Court, the family's influence on Pakistan politics has been dramatically reduced.
Never
it's
say
there,
never, like you said.
It may not, Nawaz himself may not be at least immediately able to leverage that, but he's seen to it, because he's expecting this.
He really
he's
is.
Seen to it that he remains in political power through his brother.
Well, I'm out of time today, but Nawaz Sharif really is someone is like a cat with 9 lives, and each life has been more interesting than the next. Thank you very much to our panel for joining us tonight, and that's it on the show this evening. We'll have much more on Monday when we come back, looking at politics and much more. See you then. Bye.